Welcome to the Football Historian Podcast.
By all means, enjoy it.
He will go right to the very top.
Dos, tres, cuatro times.
Here we go, Germans.
I will turn these results round.
All right, that's good manners.
There's animosity, but there's no fight.
If you can't beat them, join them.
How do you make me feel sick if I look at you?
No, I want to fight here.
Don't drink, don't sleep with women, don't drive fast cars.
Sometimes it may be good, sometimes it may be shit too!
Hello, welcome to the Football Historian Podcast. I'm delighted to be joined by Harry Robinson. Thank you for making the trip to the garage.
Thank you for having me. I'm honoured. I really enjoy mainly Eclipse and stuff, but like I'm properly fascinated by. When you put up kind of football history clips of like people giving interviews, but they speak like candidly, and no one's media trained, and everyone's like had half an ale after a game. It's the stuff that I don't know. I'm addicted to it a little bit, so it's an honour.
Well, thank you very much. Well, the first question I've started asking is, who are you and why are you here?
I'm Harry Robinson. I work for the Have a Word podcast. My title's like content producer, but I mean I do a bit of everything, I guess. And I'm also, I guess, a journalist by trade, and I've done like documentaries. And I'm here because we drank in the pub after the karaoke event, and I was like, I love your podcast, you know. And then after a couple baby Guinnesses,
yeah,
and now I'm in your garage.
Thank you very much. That's good. Not normally how it happens, but that's a good way to start. Yeah. So I've been doing the research that you're normally doing on Have a Word.
Nice.
So I'm going to rival you here. So maybe if I'm good enough, I'll be taking your job.
Let's
say. 15 years old, you interviewed Tony Bellew.
Yeah, wow, that's the first ever interview I did.
So how did that happen? Yeah.
Wow. So initially I used to write for a website that basically I used to do like a wrestling writing. They asked me to report on like WWE SmackDown for them each week, and I was like 15 at the time, 14, and then that went bust because they were using images off Google that they were nicking. And then when it went bust, I was 15, and my dad went, like, why don't you interview Tony? Because Tony Bellew was about to fight David Hay for the first time. And I was like, don't be daft. Like, why would Tony Bellew speak to a 15-year-old lad? And within 30 minutes, he got back to my email. And then I wrote up this interview or whatever. And then I was hooked on journalism then. The fact that I used to basically go home at least like for an hour after school for a week, like once a week or whatever, and just send out like a fishnet of emails. Mainly at that time it was all sports people. So then following that I did like Ricky Hatton was the second one, and then boxers were always easier to kind of get hold of. I did Darren Till, and then I started doing like press for charity football, for Wigan charity football matches. There's a fella called Mark Hayes who's like legendary in like lower league, like non-league kind of northwest football, but he put on these mad charity matches with Wigan legends. So like Roberto Martinez was playing when he was manager of Belgium. So I was 16, 17, whatever, interviewing Roberto Martinez, interviewing like Emerson Boyce, Gary Caldwell, Chimbonda. He did, Kevin Davis was there for one of them, like just mad, just insane. Like he had Brian Robson at one of these charity match playing at Ashton, like just insane. It's Andreas Christiansen who scored the goal to win Greece the Euros. He was there. The man had the maddest connections ever. Yeah, and I just would stack up my interviewing portfolio a little bit.
Try and get them. So obviously, I was going to say, it started quite sporty. So
yeah,
was it a deliberate thing that you wanted to be involved in football, in boxing, in sport, in wrestling? What was it? Or just involved? No,
so it was initially sport. It was, I mean, every lad's, I mean, it's a generalization. 90% of lads who want to get into journalism want to be sports journalists at the start, anyway. And I was, I was big into. I wasn't really massively into boxing, but I was big into combat sports. I've always been a huge MMA fan and stuff like that. Big football fan. So I'd try and get these interviews. And what kind of swayed it for me a little bit is that eventually I interviewed a woman called Laura Johnston Cole, who was a survivor of Jonestown, the Jonestown mass suicide back in the 70s. Sorry, this is a bit dark for a football podcast. And she, bear in mind, I must have been 16, 17 when I spoke to her, completely out of my depth. And this was a 70-something-year-old grandmother who was unwell as well. She had cancer at the time. And obviously this was really traumatic. Like, she cried to me on this interview over Skype. And I owe her everything for the trajectory of my life, because I've I was so enthralled by her story, despite the fact that she told that I was so unprepped, I guess, or I wasn't mature enough maybe to deal with the topic matter.
Yeah. And
I was out of my depth a little bit. She entrusted me with telling her story. And after that, I was like, I'm fascinated with like the wacky, I guess, a little bit. Not to say that her story's wacky, but like,
that
it was all
further away
people.
from Darren Till and Ricky Hatton.
Yeah, and then when I was 19, 20, when we were 20 because we were during COVID or whatever, 19, Wigan went bust anyway, and I was investigating rumours that the Hong Kong owners that we had allegedly put us into administration because they, had a bet on us to get relegated and stuff like that. All alleged, because they're all billionaires and they could sue me to the ground. And I put in so much effort into that, to the point where I was getting lots of plaudits from Wigan fans. It completely dominated my life for about however many months, like we were going through it. I put together at the age of 19, I helped put together the defence with the QC, with the lawyer, to appeal the points thing, which ended up not working, so I obviously wasn't that good. It was just so dominating. And then there was a time when I'd reported something, and it wasn't like, I'd got the day wrong, essentially. I'd reported that there was a meeting going to happen on a Tuesday, say, and it ended up happening on a Thursday. And I was on holiday in Scotland, and I was way too in over my head a little bit, because it was me and a couple of other like non-journalists trying to clamour everything to save the football club a little bit, as well as just loads of fans just throwing their heart and soul into it. And I got like messages on Facebook basically saying, "Oh, you kill yourself," kind of like you're just using this to get likes, kind of thing. And I decided that day, it was like, I'm never doing sports journalism, because I'd interviewed I'd interviewed people in cults, I'd interviewed people in hate groups. I'd done an interview with a neo-Nazi, like an active one, that went to prison like a week after I'd interviewed him, and all this really kind of controversial stuff. And the most dogs abuse I'd ever got, or any backlash for anything, was reporting on like a meeting that was going to happen at the DW Stadium for Wigan. And the meeting ended up happening as well. It was just like an honest mistake on the days or whatever. So I think football has that ability. And again, it's the same with like players or whatever. It's the only job in the world, if you're a player, where you have to just put up with dogs abuse at the end of 90 minutes, and it's fine. We're all meant to just go, oh yeah, that's allowed because they can do keepy uppies and they get paid well.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a long-winded kind of answer. That's the reason I really swerved away from sports journalism.
Yeah.
And also, I love sports and love football too much that as soon as you make it a job like that, you start to lose, I guess, the love for it a little bit. Do you know what I mean? You make your pastime your job. So.
Yeah. I feel a bit scared now, yeah.
No, but yours is enjoyable.
No.
Yeah,
I'm not
going to give you dogs abuse after 90 minutes.
No, it's people online. It's people who sit there, put their opinion out. You put a video out there, and then no matter what, it's the worst opinion ever.
I know, because
it's a 50-50 choice, and you're 100% going to get abuse.
I left 11 comments on Finn's clip where you say, I can't believe you didn't pick Kenny Dalglish. I was the one giving him dog abuse, so I see it from both sides.
Yeah, so you're faulting wrong. No, it is terrible though. Well, you've described it a lot better there. I wrote here, everything went a bit culty.
It went very culty.
Yeah, so how did you make that decision to go into that world?
I'm so far. I grew up Catholic, being from kind of this part of the country or whatever, but like I'm not a religious person at all, but I am fascinated by religion a little bit, and how kind of people can have their grips on vulnerable people, but then like I don't know, like it feels almost very cookie cutter, despite the fact I've spoken to loads of religious groups that span. I've spoken to Hebrew Israelite kind of black supremacist people in the US, and then I've also spoken to like people who were part of a Korean cult, and people who were a part of cults that weren't even religious as well. Like Jonestown wasn't a religious cult or anything, and that really fascinated me. And I don't know what, maybe I'm just proper strange, like, 'cause it is a weird thing to kind of get into, but also it's like, before I started interviewing kind of cult people, I didn't have many icebreakers. And first day of uni, when I met my housemates, I was like, I've interviewed like cult members, and then you get loads of attention. And I think I'm big-headed enough as well to enjoy the having to be able to talk about it. You know what I mean? It's a question on that card for a reason, because it's interesting.
Yeah.
If I'd interviewed like bin men, you wouldn't have, no disrespect to bin men. If it was bin men in a cult, then
they are.
they'd be
That's
on
the
the
next
card.
one.
Yeah.
They'll ruin it. Well, I was going to ask you about a few cults that I know you've looked into, spoke to people, and then obviously you've done a lot of research. You've got a lot more to say than that. But just if you could sum them up to people as to why these are weird, and then we'll go on.
Yeah.
So the first one, maybe a bit more of an obvious one, is the Westboro Baptist Church.
Westboro Baptist Church. So I've interviewed a couple people from there actually. But the Westboro Baptist Church is a church based in Topeka, Kansas, who believe very hateful beliefs in terms of mainly against kind of the LGBTQ community. Like they use a lot of slurs. They do a lot of hate preaching as well. They hold these signs up. They'll go and picket the funerals of soldiers or the funerals of like AIDS victims and stuff, because they kind of believe that if you've died that way, then God has meant for you. It's God's plan to mean for you to die that way. They're a horrible bunch of people. But they had up until however long ago, they had Fred Phelps, who was the founder, who was like, he'd give these sermons where he'd say that people were going to eat their babies and mad stuff like that. All these cults have someone at the top that's just a bit mental, and they've tamed down a little bit. I mean, they're still hateful. When he died, because you lose that kind of figurehead.
Pushing it, yeah.
But like they're just very hateful. They're maybe not as wacky. Wacky's a bad thing. So I wouldn't go for a drink with any of them, put it that way. But yeah.
Okay, that's right. Well, next one, and then this is hard one for me to say. The Workers' Institute of Marxism, Leninism, Mao Zedong thought. Is that right?
Yeah. Wow. So
you've done on them.
Yeah. So that was a group that was led by Aravindan Balakrishnan. I think that's his name. I think he's still in prison.
Did he score the winner for Greece in 2000?
Yeah. Cracking volley. And he was a man who, I think he was from India, but based in London. And he had all these women who lived in this house with him that basically he told them that he controlled the world a little bit. He said that there was a satellite called Jackie. I don't know why he picked that name. It's a proper dinner lady name for a cult satellite. But that would like basically, like, if they didn't do what he said, would harm them and stuff like that. It, like, as much as I'm joking, it's a really sad story because the woman I spoke to was called Katie Morgan Davis, who is Aravindan Balakrishnan's daughter, but she was born into the house that the church, the cult was in, and was told that she had no parents. Told that she was grown in a test tube. Told that she wasn't allowed to leave the house, otherwise this satellite would kind of get a hold of her. And she was 30 when she escaped, so she didn't exist as a person until she was 30. And she is the loveliest and most pure soul. Like, I spoke to her and this man John, who's like her friend, and also like John was this kind of character who was almost teaching how the world worked a little bit, as this person who, because she's now been out of the church probably like 12 years now, and like, but just before we'd had the interview, they went to Build-A-Bear because she'd missed out on all that, and like the immense amount of trauma that she's had to go through and then come out of was just insane. But yeah, it's a very small. I mean, it was a very small group. Like the upshot is that Aravindan ended up in prison. He was like 70 maybe when he got arrested or whatever, and was given maybe about that many years, like 70 years in prison or something insane. Like, there was no way he was ever going to get out, or whatever. Life sentence 25, so it would be like 20. But there's no way he's ever going to get out. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure he's dead now. So Again, proper light-hearted stuff to start a
Yeah,
football
probably my
podcast.
fault. Yeah.
No, I mean, I find it interesting. So hopefully some of your listeners
No,
will.
definitely. And then the Wales Mission Society Church of God. That's the one you did the documentary on. I watched that one yesterday. It's a bit of a a mad watch.
Yeah. So so they're also known as the WMSCOG or the WIMSCOG. They believe that there was a man called An Son Young who was the second coming of Jesus, and he's now dead. And then there's now this mother god figure who's this Korean woman, and she is God on earth, and whatever she says is kind of the word of God. They believe that the kind of Saturday is the Sabbath day, and they don't believe in kind of images of the cross and stuff like that. But people will go on pilgrimages to Korea and give her loads of gifts and give her money, and they are, maybe I should say allegedly, so they're very rich, so I don't want to get sued. Allegedly, they're all about recruiting people. Really, they make a lot of money that goes all the way to the top. That's my opinion. Kind of going into the investigation when I did the documentary, they'd tell people to not have children, because if you have children, that takes away from the church, and that takes away from recruiting people. They'd reward people who would recruit more people. They'd go to unis and try and get students who like first year students. They're a nasty group, but they out on the outlook, it's like, look how much charity work we do. And they'll do they had like a flash mob video that I saw that was proper weird. It was like them all dancing to like some hymn. So they cover it up, but in my opinion, it's quite, and maybe allegedly or whatever, so we don't get bollocked. It's there's sinister undertones there, I guess.
Yeah, well, obviously you watch the documentary, actually, it's a pretty mad watch.
Thank you so much.
And I talk about backlash that you get off it, as you've said allegedly 4 times there, and I even read the comments on it, and it's like there's a lot of
I get some every day
comments towards it, and there's people having a go, but it's like you can see it's people from both sides maybe, and you're getting support and abuse.
Well, the amount of support that I got from former members is one of the best things I've ever done, because I get messages of people saying that I got them out of the church, or I put them onto resources that has got it unbelievable. And the people who helped me and the survivors who have left the church, whatever, who've helped me have been we're unbelievable the entire time, and I owe everything to them. But then I heard from someone that they played the documentary in the church in branches, went for the sermons, and that's why there's been an influx of people who find it and try and shout it down, or it seems to be there's loads of bots on it.
Yeah, I look, AI generated comment. That's what it looks like, probably. Yeah.
Comments get the algorithm and it pushes it up, so it's like, it's not the worst thing in the world. But it was always going to cause a bit. But I expected it to get taken down earlier on, and I had stuff recorded, in case they wanted to try and come after me. That was that proved everything was done legally and stuff like that. But it's still up there. So Mother's Ruin. Still want to go watch.
Yeah. Well, having said all this, obviously you're an award-winning documentary maker as well. Was that for that one, or
that was for that, and that was for the one before that I did was called The Real Black Sabbath, which was with a group called the ISUPK, which was the Hebrew Israelite group that I mentioned. And that I made whilst I was at the University of Oklahoma. And we got to go to the university paid for us to go to a film festival in Portland. And me and Adam Dickinson, who was my mate who I went out there with, who filmed stuff, filmed everything, got to go, and we got bladdered in Portland and went to this film festival. And we turned up in the photo I've got. I turned up in an Adidas top with a blazer over it. It was awful clobber. I've come in a suit, but I had an Adidas top on because I'm I'm not as uptight or whatever. And then turned up and everyone's just dressed. Everyone had scarves. Do you know what I mean? It was that kind of vibe, and I looked vastly overdressed, but also looked like I hadn't got myself dressed in the morning. I don't know.
So we've talked about all this cult awards. Yet somehow you may be most famous for writing Would You Rather questions. Is that possibly correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know what I mean? No one's ever bought me a drink for my documentary work. So I originally was a listener of Have a Word.
Yeah.
And wrote questions or whatever, and the lads were very complimentary about my questions, I guess, on the podcast, and then I'd get invited to live events or whatever. And then fast forward 4 years, and I'm working there like full time or whatever, doing in the studio every day for all the episodes. It's a bit of a mad, I don't know, roller coaster that I've been on.
Yeah.
Like it stemmed from completely nothing as well. Like I went to uni to study journalism, and I learnt loads and stuff like that. But I've ended up working for a comedy podcast from it.
Yeah.
And it came at a good time as well, because like when I was graduating uni, I was looking for jobs in TV, but so I'm epileptic and I can drive now, but when I was graduating uni, I couldn't drive, and you can't get jobs in TV if you can't drive. Really, I mean, like, you know, there are scholarships and there's stuff like that, but if I wanted to be a runner somewhere, I needed a car. So like, there's probably a case to be made that I would have maybe been pressured to go down the more standard journalism route if I was able to, and I wouldn't, you know, be able to come into work and play darts every day, like just have a massive just like joke about. So I'm very lucky. I have the best job in the world by a mile.
Well, that's great. And so just to explain to people what it is, obviously, so you're sat at home writing emails where they're saying get involved in the show, and you're saying would you rather be this or be a chair or be a table, whatever, and then you're writing those in, and then they then say get more and more involved, and now you are like a key part of the show. But could you describe what Have a Word is to someone who's never seen it? Yeah,
so Have a Word is a comedy podcast, originally started by Adam Rowe and Dan Nightingale, two of the world's best comedians, and then also kind of co-hosted by producers Finn, who you've had on, and Carl, Sensei Carl, and it's just a daft comedy podcast, really. I mean, we've talked some real just nonsense on there, and then we'll have guests on and every week, normally in the world of comedy, or like normally exclusively in the world of comedy, but we've had like Paddy the Baddy and stuff like that on. And then once a month we'll go and do specials, which is like I'm in charge of producing and helping Will, our amazing kind of director and cinematographer and producer, on the specials each specials each month. So we've done like the Red Bull soapbox race, we've been to Amsterdam twice, we've done you know, the lads before I got involved, we were in Nashville and stuff like that. So again, it's this daft, I mean, really ultimately it's kind of the documentary stuff that I always wanted to kind of do, except we're just with this comedy twist of like most recently like the one that comes out this week as of recording it, whatever, is the farm special. Like we got to just go and be on a farm for a day and like go and, you know, on tractors and that. It was ideal. So
yeah, and then obviously from there, so you said you've gone on a roller coaster way, but you're going back a bit more culty again. with your podcast that you do with Carl off Have a Word. Yeah, so
under the Have a Word umbrella, it's called Mad That. We're halfway through kind of recording the episodes now, and they're all going to come out at the start of 2025. That is the stuff I was saying about Tony Bellew and the stuff I was doing, and kind of age 16, 17, 18 or whatever, especially when I was doing like my own podcast with kind of culty people and you know, people who were like on the fringes of society. This is what that Harry dreamed of. Like we've got a sign. I get, like, do you know what I mean? Like that I can touch. It's crazy. I've got a desk. I've got a seat on a desk. I've got the cameras. I'm like sat there. Like when I edit it, it's this passion project. Cause I'm like, I was editing one of the episodes today, and I was saying to Carl, I was like, we're sick, aren't we? Because I was just so unbelievably buzzing with what we've made. So yeah, if anyone who wants to, that'll come in 2025. It's called Mad That.
Yeah,
and it will be available publicly. There will be early access on the Have a Word Patreon, but
it'll be its own thing as well after. Yeah. Well, that's great. Well, if anything, it's shown the perseverance that you did when you sent in a million emails to get Ricky Hatton and a million emails to Have a Word. So the trick is to just email until it happens.
I was the most successful stalker up until Fiona Harvey rocked up, and then I've dropped out, I think.
It does work though. I don't know where they're the same, but similar. If you just keep messaging people and ask them, you can eventually wear them down. That's why you're here today.
Yeah, exactly. I just you know, bullied Dan until he went, yeah, fine, come in. I don't think that's what happened.
All right, well, that's the end of the first section. We'll have a quick break and
Yeah.
we're going to chat a bit more about football and yourself in a second, but we'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Hi, I'm Warren, the producer for the Football Historian podcast, and we're here today to talk to you about the Patreon subscription.
Yes, so for just £1 a month for the first 100 people, there's a lot of benefits that you get, and I think £1 is a terrific deal.
Pittance,
Yes, £1 only, and you get early access, which means at least 24 hours before everyone else gets the episode, you get to watch it. There's also an extra section, we call it the Football Historian Podcast Extra Time, and we ask all the questions to the guests that no one else gets to see unless you're a patron. And on top of that, you're the ones who get to ask the questions. You send them in, we tell you which guest is going to be coming and sitting in this chair. You ask them, we record it, you get to watch it. No one else does. On top of that, we do a monthly special. We did one last night. It was a quiz. You were there.
yeah, bedlam and great content.
Yeah, so hopefully you can watch that. As I said, we've got a round on Linvoy Primus or Lionel Messi. We've done mastermind stuff, all that. That's going to happen every month. The bigger this grows, we're going to do it even more regularly. Hopefully it'll be once a week. But we need your support. So to do that, £1 a month for the first 100 people. Your early support will be rewarded. From then on, it's £3 a month if you want to support us. If you want to pay £5 a month, you get all that we've just mentioned, but you get a poster. Warren will sign it, I'll sign it, all the lads. We'll get a few of the guests to do it as well. We'll send that out to you. And then for £10 a month, you get all that, the poster, all the early access, and you get a free copy of any of my books. So I've done one on Billy Liddell, Crossing the Park, Tommy Lawrence. They're all worth at least £20. For just £10, you get a copy of the book, all the stuff we've already mentioned. We'd really appreciate your support. We cannot do this without you.
This really is a passion project, and anything people can put into it goes straight back into it. We don't take a wage. We're doing this for free. We're doing this because we enjoy what we do.
That's it. It all makes the content better. And I say from just £1 a month, you can make our dreams come true. Thanks for the support. Enjoy the rest of the episode. Welcome back to the second section. Thank you for not running away in the break.
I know.
Gaylord College.
Everyone laughs at that.
Yeah.
Do you know what?
Yeah, what was that like?
So Gaylord College is the journalism college at the University of Oklahoma. Do you know what's so funny is that none of the Americans understood why it was funny. None of them. Like no one was like, oh yeah. But I used to get family members message me and like take the mick. The best thing I've ever done in my life. I spent a year at the University of Oklahoma. It's the reason the first documentary I did got made because like there was a unbelievable lecturer out there called Mike Betcher, who was the first live reporter at CNN when CNN did their first broadcast in the 80s. He was he's a journalistic legend, and he took from before I'd even started there, he took me under his wing until I left, and still now, like I message him and stuff like that. And he was the reason that documentary got made and stuff like that. And I got to explore the US and just the most insane thing, and it's completely changed my outlook on the world. It's probably the reason I've got a mustache and a mullet now. Do you know what I mean? It's by far the most broadening and the best thing I've done was spend a year away from here.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask, obviously, not just being there, but being in America as well. And how did that come about? Did you apply? Did they tell you to apply?
Yeah, it was a possibility on my course. And then so I was at uni when COVID happened. My first year at uni got hit by COVID, and then my entire second year was spent in my uni house because we'd already signed the contract for the rent. We didn't leave the house for a year, so I was in lockdown in Sheffield. And then like the offer was always there to go away. Originally, I applied to go to Pittsburgh Uni because it looked like American Liverpool, and I was like, I know I wasn't even going to go do journalism because they didn't really do it there, but it was just like, oh, I'll be there. But they pulled out because of COVID, and Oklahoma didn't believe in COVID. They were very like Trump voting, like mad kind of conservative, like Republican state. So that's why I ended up in Oklahoma. But it was that they've got the best journalism uni in the world, certainly for broadcast. And it was just, I can't wax lyrical enough about Oklahoma. And I mean, like I've got like tattoos, and stuff like. Do you know what I mean? So. Yeah. I'm just obsessed.
You enjoyed it,
yeah.
So I was just going to say, like, you smash at the moment. When you were recording podcasts and documentaries, what was the end goal? 'Cause I'm guessing it wasn't being was your content research producer have a word? Was it were you aiming towards something else? Like, are you happy where you are now? Because you just said it's the dream job, but like, what was your plan when you got back to England?
So I'm definitely happy where I am. Like I want to, do stuff with the podcast for as long as I possibly can, because it's the dream job and stuff like that. And I'm having so much fun consistently. But my job was all like Louis Theroux was always my idol and still is. Do you know what I mean? Like it's the only person I think if I ever met I would really struggle. My hand would be a bit shaky. There's not a footballer on the planet I don't think that could make me as nervous as being in the same room as Louis Theroux. And it was to do that. There's not as many. I don't think there's as many kind of proper television documentary filmmakers as there is like in the US, where there's quite a lot and there's a big turnover of them. Whereas if you ask anyone to name you British documentary filmmakers, you've got like, you used to have like kind of John Ronson, he doesn't really do much now. You've got Louis Theroux, Stacey Dooley, Reggie Yates is a good, but like, do you know what I mean? There's not, but no one knows them in terms of like that they do loads of documentaries.
There are like people who are like, it looks like they've been asked to do the documentary rather than documentaries.
There's loads of celebrities that do documentaries. Olivia Atwood did a really good one, like from Love Island, did a really good one on kind of like, it was like financial domination and like sex work and stuff like that. Like dead interesting. But again, it's not people who go to uni to do journalism. That was always the goal. And like, it'll probably always be, it's something I can always pick back up or do alongside the podcast or whatever. It's certainly something that is my passion and kind of will always be my passion. But also I'm so passionate about the work I do at Have a Word as well. Yeah. Like I never want to mess up, I guess.
Yeah, but they all seem to have their own thing outside of it. Obviously, the podcast through the middle and everything.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Like, we had Finn on, obviously, who does his music.
Yeah, and music
hosted by two comedians.
Yeah.
Surely there's still room for you to be on Channel 4 doing a mad documentary about some cults.
If Channel 4 want to get in touch, then I'll happily help make them a documentary.
If you're watching Channel 4, let us know. So when you were starting out, looking at your part, you set up your own website, you had your own podcast, and this is going to sound mean, but as someone who has similar podcasts who maybe doesn't get thousands upon hundreds of thousands of views, what would your advice be to someone who is starting out, got a website that gets 5 clicks and a interview that gets 20 views? Like, how do you get to where you've got to?
I mean, perseverance is always the main one. And when I did my own podcast, I did it purely as a passion project thing. I mean, like, it was always great if it got views, but it was never the be all and end all. Mainly it was to say that I'd interviewed those people. It's a great thing to put on a CV as well if you're a journalist coming up. If I wanted to have made anything of it, I'd do the kind of thing that you do where it's like consistent. Consistency is the main one. You have to consistently keep up with it. That's why it's like, if you're not going to consistently keep up with a podcast and keep on doing it, then do it as seasons, because at least you're consistent for the season and then you can go away or whatever. That consistency is the main advice. The person who told me to start a podcast was Dan Walker, who was on Strictly, the journalist. Because I knew I wanted to go to Sheffield Uni, and I was at college, and I emailed him as a famous graduate of that scheme of the degree. Again, just message as many people. Like, do you know what I mean? And never be afraid to pester people. Just consistently message people. Message Dan Walker, and he was like, "Get on podcasting. Podcasting will be massive." And he wasn't wrong. So,
well, your first episode of yours, Bruce Buffer, is that right?
Yeah.
So that's a pretty mad guest to get as your first one.
It's so mad as well because I've interviewed Bruce a couple times. So I did him once on a written when I was 16. I did it when I was in secondary school. I interviewed Bruce Buffer, and then I was like, Bruce, I want to start a podcast. I got told by this journalist, start a podcast. Will you be my first podcast guest? And he was. And then if you watched Carl Day for the podcast, Bruce Buffer does intros for people. That was because I got in, because me and Bruce are like that. So so that was a bit mad, especially because, like, I mean, he really talks like that as well, which is insane. He sounds like that. He's got the coolest voice of all time. And I called him up like about or I messaged him or whatever, and he called me back about those kind of Carl Day things. He was like, "Hello, Harry." And my head fell off because I wasn't expecting him to respond, to be honest. Like, it's not like we go for tapas at the weekend or anything.
Yeah, so your advice would be perseverance
and honestly contact the hell out of everyone. Just send off as many emails. If you want guests or whatever, send off as many emails as you can, because if that's what I used to do for interviews. If you send off 100 emails or whatever and 2 people get back, you've got 2 interviews.
Yeah.
That's still massive. It's still 2 things you can produce to put out there that people can see.
Yeah. That's good. Well, and then I know we touched on it before about backlash and stuff like that. So you obviously do go into quite dangerous waters with the cult. So obviously it's important and it's good that people learn about it. But what's been like the most scared maybe you've been, or the worst reaction you've had to something that you've done?
So do you know what? Kind of the opposite to your question a little bit. So that when I did my first documentary, I went to I met up in a park with the ISUPK, these Hebrew Israelite, big, stocky African American men who all wore bulletproof vests and these big stomper boots. And there was a man called Ayash who had gold teeth. He must have been 6'4", huge man, had a gold chain with an AK-47 on, and he frisked me for weapons when I got there. And it's the number one thing where I show people and they go, you must have been terrified. And because I'd built up in my head for so long how much I wanted to do a documentary, I was like, I've never been more in my element ever. Like it was literally they were like, can you meet us in this children's park so it's safe for us both or whatever. There was kids on the swing and we're talking about like, the white race and stuff like that. And they were intimidating in terms of their questions and stuff like that, and their answers, and they wanted me to kiss their boots, to say sorry for slavery. I told them no, and which is in the documentary. But like, I've never been so comfortable in a situation, because I was just like on adrenaline entirely, because we left, and me and my mate Adam couldn't get up. We walked for ages to like a fast food place where we couldn't really get back because we'd come in an Uber. We had no way of getting anywhere as well. Like, we were in the middle of Oklahoma City in nowhere with 2 quite large like fellas in body armor, which is, it's probably maybe the most scared at points I've been, especially when they asked me to kiss the boots. But like, on the most part, like, I was exhilarated, I guess. In terms of backlash, I was really worried about getting kind of legal backlash for the most recent documentary. I was worried that I was going to they were going to come after me, or but say worried, like I was prepared for it, but it's a ball ache.
Yeah, you'd rather not.
I've been very lucky. It's this thing, I've never had backlash for like an interview I've done. It's only ever been the football stuff that I did when I was a teenager that was like people threatened to petrol bomb your house or whatever because you don't like Wigan or whatever. I don't know. Mad.
So the most comfortable you felt was when you were getting touched up in a park with kids.
They were soft touches.
Good. The next one, I just want to ask you what the plan for the future is. And obviously we've kind of touched that again, but like, are you doing more documentary stuff, or is it all in this podcast now where you're scratching this itch, so to speak?
So I started kind of trying to work out a new project in terms of like a documentary project alongside. It's a lot of effort to go to, especially because the first two I made, I borrowed cameras from the uni. Like, I could borrow cameras off Haverware, but they're a lot more expensive cameras. And like, if I, if it doesn't go well, then it's a nightmare. But yeah, I'm putting my heart and soul in this podcast alongside. I mean, obviously, like, Haverword's always kind of the priority as well, because that is my job, and it's also it's my passion. Like, I love working for the podcast. And I'm mad that is under the Haverword umbrella, so it all benefits everything. But journalistically, all my journalistic brain is in that. When I'm not doing podcast, like Haverword stuff, because that is speaking to interesting people is my passion, rather than the documentary. Like, documentaries is a way of doing it.
Yeah.
But just being able to say that you can chat to these people and is so, I don't know, is exciting. And it's different worldviews as well. Like, I'm a big believer in the interview style of not, like, Piers Morgan turns everything into a debate and stuff. And if you want to watch that, it's great to watch. But I love, like, I did one with a neo-Nazi I mean, it did turn into a debate because he was just a horrible racist, like rancid person. But the first half, I just wanted to find out why he had those beliefs. And if you make people just keep on talking or whatever, you can get to like the center of their brain a little bit, and you can find out why they believe this kind of stuff, and what makes people tick. And ultimately as well, when you've got people who have those kind of prejudice beliefs, that's how you get them out of those prejudice beliefs, is you let them talk. So, I mean, no one's ever changed their views because you've screamed at them.
Yeah.
So, but it's all exciting.
Yeah,
I guess.
That's all good. Kill them with kindness.
Yeah, it's right.
Right, so gear change.
Yes.
Yeah, from Skem, is that correct? Skelmersdale?
Yeah, I mean, like, it's a complicated one. My parents was divorced, so I grew up initially in Parbold.
Yeah.
I'm born in Brighton, but like really, but I don't remember any of Brighton or anything. Grew up in Parbold, which is like a little sleepy northwestern town. The village, average age of 89, and then after time I'd been Skem, and then there's not a lot to do in Skem. It's just filled with roundabouts.
And then looking at you today, you support Wigan.
Yeah.
So where does that link come from? Brighton, Skem, Parbold, and Wigan.
So my dad's from Bootle, huge Liverpool fan. Used to go home and away Europe and had the Anfield season ticket, whatever. And then he moved down south for work, and for whatever reason, had me down there, and then came back up and couldn't get a season ticket back. I think that is kind of the story he told me. So when, but he's always gone to watch football wherever he's gone. When he was down in London, he had a Millwall season ticket, so he could just watch football. And when he came back up, Wigan just got promoted to the Prem. I think he might have gone maybe just before that when they were getting promoted, but the Wigan had just got promoted to the Prem, and season tickets, especially during the Dave Whelan era, have always been kind of affordable for especially children. I remember one time when I was a teenager, my season ticket was £99 for the season. Unreal. So I grew up watching Wigan, and I'm a big believer of support your local, or support the team that you go and support. If you're a United fan in London, if you're not going to Old Trafford at least sometimes, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and it's quite rich now because I don't go to as many Wigan games as I'd like to, but also no one's going to give me stick for being a Wigan fan who can't make as many games. So it's like, yeah, I mean, I'm not glory, although like we've won more trophies recently than Everton, so that's something at least.
Ali, the producer, will enjoy that one. Yeah.
Yeah, no, look over.
So. Just a quick chat about Wigan then. You're a big Wigan fan?
Huge Wigan fan.
Okay, good. So, what went right at Wigan to see them initially climb up to league? You said I know it's a bit before your time, but what went right for them to become a Premier League club? Because it was, I remember watching it, I think it was like 2005 when they got promoted, and I think they played Chelsea the first game.
Yeah, that was my first football game was that.
So but I remember like that being like a massive thing, like tiny Wigan have made it. So like, do you know what it was? Obviously, to put you on the spot, but like,
I mean, it was Dave Whelan really. Like a man who loved, he still lives, so loves, but he loved the town of Wigan, loved everything. Like he's a Wigan, like he bleeds blue and white, and he took a club that was almost killed, as far as I know. Like again, I'm not massively up with the kind of lore of Wigan hugely, but it was almost killed off by the rugby back in like the 90s when they were looking for an owner or whatever, all that kind of stuff. And Dave Whelan took a club in the old 4th division, signed Roberto Martinez and 2 other Spaniards, the 3 amigos, put them all in Mexican hats and took photos for the press. And then, and built this team that had Graham Jones, who I think is he still in the England setup? He was at Newcastle for a while.
Yeah.
But he was at Belgium as well, Roberto Martinez and stuff like that. He was banging in goals and eventually slowly worked up the leagues. And then there was that championship season that had Jason Roberts and Nathan Ellington, which again is like, I'm gutted that I missed that really, because like I've speaking to Wiganers and seeing consistent replays of them as a duo, they're the best strike partnership of all time, and you can shove your York and Cole and all that. It's Ellington and Roberts got like, just nasty. And then Nathan Ellington left it was West Brom or Blackburn, or I can't remember where he left it when Wigan got promoted to the Prem. So I never really got to see them in action, I guess.
Days.
Yeah.
But I think, the trend now is Barclaysman and all that. I think Wigan is early in that era. And I'm sure we'll touch on that a bit in a sec, but what went wrong when they got relegated after they won the FA Cup, and then how come Wigan haven't been back in the Prem, in your opinion?
So, Wigan got relegated. I remember the season we got relegated. We had like kind of injury issues and stuff. And also we won the cup when we got relegated. It's never ever been boring to be a Wigan fan. We were always either punching above our weight or in a relegation battle or in a promotion push. If we were that, like, it's only been like the last year that we've had real kind of like, we're just mid-table in League One. But yeah, so we got relegated, but again we'd been floating around there for ages, and we'd had 8 unbelievable years that no one had, and also like the Barclaysman kind of stuff. The best Barclaysman players are Wigan players, your Roddy Agers and your Chimbondas and and all that kind of stuff. The Culture Ultras who came up with the Barclaysman thing, like I've chatted to them before, and Fionn who hosts that their podcast has always said to me, is like, Wigan are the number 1 4 a.m. in the kitchen Premier League side, by a mile, because you could just sit there and say Arjen Dazoo to someone in the kitchen and the red falls off. And then what went wrong? I mean, Dave Whelan had to say he was getting older and his health wasn't very good. He gave the chairmanship to David Sharp, who eventually we got relegated. Do you know what? A lot of time it's been poor managerial appointments. We had Owen Coyle when we first were in the Championship. A horrific appointment. His assistant manager, so Wigan's rivals Bolton, his assistant manager had a Bolton tattoo on his arm. Awful. And also he's a Bolton led, long-time Bolton manager, Owen Coyle. Insane. Then we had Uwe Rosler, who was good, and then we had Malky Mackay, who had he got appointed after he got sacked from Cardiff for like homophobic jokes or whatever had come out. And some of every time we've been relegated, we've had a horrific managerial appointment. It's very rare, except for when we went into admin. We went into administration twice. But especially the first time we had Paul Cook, who's a great manager, but then still dropped down leagues. But I mean, we had Warren Joyce, who was Man United's youth coach, wasn't suited to. That was a weird time. We had Gabriel Obertan playing for us in the Championship. It was really strange. We had John Sheridan recently, who was horrific. Colo Torre last season is the worst manager we've ever had. And everyone forgets that we had Colo. The players would come out onto the pitch and they wouldn't have a warm-up set up, and they just kick balls at the advertising hoarding and it bounced back to them, and that was the warm-up. Because Colo Torre hadn't told them anything. But I don't get how he played at such a high level.
Yeah.
surely he warmed up at one point in his career. He had quite a long career.
He must have had at least one coach there as well who probably could have let him warm up, he'd assume.
I don't think any of them were very good. Not to disparage them or whatever, but yeah, I think poor managerial appointments like that, and then poor ownership. Two lots of poor ownerships back to back that have ran the club poorly. The first bad ownership with the Hong Kong ownerships, especially, they were poisons for the club. But now things are looking up. I mean, they've levelled in terms of we've been a couple of days away from the club not existing before. As long as Wigan don't fold, I'm happy. I'll watch it. Or if Wigan folded and got restarted and they had to be a Sunday League team, I'd still be a Wigan fan. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
My favourite years of watching Wigan have been in League One as well, by a mile. Maybe because that's more the age that I coming of age.
Yeah.
Watching Wigan, so I've never bothered what league they're playing in. It's more how the clubs run, and now we're at a point where the clubs run will be a bit smarter than it has been recently.
The future could be bright then. I got two more questions just before this section.
Yeah.
How long until Wigan are back in the Prem?
I don't know when my grandkids can watch them. I think maybe. I mean, I don't see it any. It's weird. We're in an era now where you can make that jump to the Prem if you catch it right. Ipswich have just done back-to-back promotions. Pains me because Sam Morsey, their captain, was at Wigan, and the only reason we lost him at Wigan was because of administration, and he's a fantastic player. And Christian Walton, who's there, we had him on loan for a couple of seasons. It's like things could have been so much different. Where like if you'd asked me before Wigan had gone to administration, things were looking bright. Like it'll be a long time before we can get in the Prem. We never say never, but also I think like if we can get into the Premier League, the gulf is so massive now. Like I like it wouldn't be enjoyable. Do you know what I mean? You just get battered every. The Premier League isn't the be all and end all for so many teams. You know, if Wigan are pushing for the title in League One or promotion in League One, I'd rather that a million times than Wigan being 19th in the Prem and scraping like a dodgy win away at Southampton. Like it means nothing to me.
Yeah. That's fair. And then the last one is: which former Wigan player or manager is most likely to start their own cult?
Ooh, that's a brilliant question.
Colo
Torre, like he wouldn't have anywhere. He wouldn't be able to warm them up. That's such a good question. I've got a friend who's a Skeb United fan. And I went to a lot of the games, and Pascal Chimbonda was their manager.
Oh yeah.
And I've seen how Pascal Chimbonda rules with an iron fist a little bit. I think he's the one who's mental enough to maybe start. And with all respect, like he was a great player, and also like a nice fella. But you know, I saw him throttle the goalkeeper allegedly. His first game managing Skem, I went to it, and he got sent off at half time. He got sent into the build. There was no seats or anything, whatever. He got sent into like the changing rooms, so he could be sent off the pitch. And he went upstairs to like the toilet, I guess, and hung out the window. Oh no, he went upstairs on top of the scaffolding, and he managed on top of the scaffolding. You know, like that, like Arsene Wenger did when he put his arms. It was like that. And then the manager was like, the referee was like, "You have to go in. Like you're just now on the dugout, but higher. So you've got to go in." And he managed it hanging out the window. Like that is a man with eccentricity and vigor enough to rally. I mean, he rallied me. I was a Skem United fan for a couple of weeks. Like, I'd have taken a bullet for that man.
Everyone's got to do short sleeves and gloves.
I'd say Chimbonda's maybe eccentric enough, and also he's not managing anyone at the moment, so he's free. He could manage his hand.
Yeah. Great. Right, that's the end of this section. We'll chat a bit more about Wigan in a couple of seconds. Thank you very much. Welcome back to the next section of the Football Historian podcast.
Sorry, Pete, I'm really sorry to interrupt you. Where'd you get that shirt from?
Oh, this Lazio number's just from Classic Football Shirts. Where'd you get yours from?
Thank you. Mine's from Classic Football Shirts as well.
Wow. Well, when I bought my shirt, I used the code TFH10 to get 10% off all orders. Did you use the same?
I did. I used a discount code. I think it was the same as yours.
Oh, TFH10. Oh, that's great, because if you want to get 10% off all your orders, you can use TFH10 at classicfootballshirts.com.
Unbelievable deal.
All right, welcome back. Third section. Just talk a bit more generally about football now. Culture out the window, don't worry. If you kind of already said it, but what's your first game or your first memory of football?
So it's a weird one. So it's my first game, and I remember bits of it. I'll give you the first game I went to, definite, and then I'll give you the first game that I remember weirdly vividly. First game I went to was a Wigan opening game of the season of the 2005-06 season. Wigan versus Chelsea, where Wigan held their own the whole game, and then Hernan Crespo scored at the end. Broke Wigan hearts. But so that was the first game I went to. But again, that was a season where Wigan were kind of written off. I mean, we finished 10th that season, and they were written off as the underdogs, and they showed that they could kind of keep up. Like, could have left that game, certainly with a point.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for Hernan Crespo, which I think is, a solid
Yeah.
person to concede to. And weirdly, one of the first games I vividly remember, and I actually can't remember the score of it that well, but I think it was 3-2. Wigan played Charlton in the Prem, like Darren Bent's Charlton, I think. And I don't know what, I just remember the goals. That's the first time I think I really took in a football atmosphere and enjoyed it like viscerally. Because I was also one of the, like, again, probably undiagnosed epilepsy. I was always that kind of dopey kid a little bit, or like, you know, if I wasn't feeling it when I was like 5, it'd be like I'd just look at the program for the whole game, that kind of one. But I think we moved to go sit with someone else in the East Stand in Wigan, and at Wigan, and we scored, and I remember it being just hectic, and that's maybe the first true like passion of football moment, I guess. And I don't know why. I've probably got the score wrong as well, but I remember vividly Wigan versus Charlton. And so Charlton have always had this weird, like, I've always had a bit of a soft spot for them because of that.
Yeah.
And also they dealt with when they went to admin about the same time as us as well, and dealt with their owners really well. So like, yeah, absolutely.
Right. So what's the best game that you've ever watched or seen, or
I mean, in terms of the kind of, so I've probably got two. My favorite game is my favorite away day. When me and my friend Powell went to, and like everyone else, we always used to travel around, going to Wigan and stuff like that. End of the season, went to Doncaster, had to, this must have been 17-18 season, had to win the game to win the title, and I don't think scored for the whole first half, and then second half is facing the away fans, and we'd sold out an obscene amount of the ground because it was a big game for us. And Will Grigg scored, who just such an unbelievable finisher. Will Grigg scored, and there was a pitch invasion. I was on the pitch in Doncaster, or maybe I was on the pitch at the end of the game or whatever, but I fell down like 4 rows of stairs, and then it was the height of Will Griggs on fire and stuff that. That might even be one of my best football moments, I guess.
Yeah.
And there's also it's weird, I completely didn't even like think about it because it's not seen as like a normal game. The 2013 FA Cup final is like, God, I remember everything about that day. Like, I remember the bus home, and I was on the bus with, because Callum McManaman's then girlfriend, and he just won the man of the match when Wigan won the FA Cup, and he was on the phone crying or something to her on the bus. And I was 12. Like, I went with my stepdad, who is a big Wigan fan, but at the time I'd maybe only known him like a year or so, and like, and I love my stepdad to bits, but I credit that game with bringing me and him closer, I guess.
Yeah.
As like a lad who's just started secondary school, and his mum's just got like a new fella and stuff like that. Something that me and my stepdad have like this shared passion, because it was just me and him, and I've got like this. There was a photo ended up at the back of the Times, and it was of me in a jester hat with all these flags and like Wigan stamps, I guess, on my cheeks. Just like everything about that game. Roger Espinoza in that game is so underrated. Like, no one talks about how he was everywhere. Roger Espinoza was all over that pitch that entire game, and I remember watching it, maybe because I wasn't watching the right things during the game because I was like 12, but like just going like, that was unbelievable. As a player, like even off the ball, his pressing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
At the age of 12, I was just shocked that a man could run that much. And he's like that Roger Espinoza, a footballer that no one really ever, unless you're like I
haven't heard that name in a long time.
Yeah, I think he's playing for like the real Salt Lake City or something. Unless you're like a Salt Lake City fan, like no one's really talking about Roger Espinoza. But yeah, no. That's
a pretty well. Any fans of the show? We had the Chase and one of the lads, specialist subject. he's a Liverpool fan.
Yeah.
And his special subject was the 2013 FA Cup final. So
I could give him a run for his money, I think.
Well, I've got the quiz. We might do it later for you. Go ahead. But next one then is, what is the greatest era of football?
Of football in general,
Yeah,
so
whatever.
not just Wigan football.
Not just Wigan. In general.
I think it's a weird one. The best is, and this is probably hack because we're coming after this Barclaysman thing, but 2006, 2007 to 2013, 14 Premier League is just, think how many names you can list off there.
Yeah.
It was back when, you know, you get more. There was more diversity, I think, in the way teams played. I think teams play very similarly now.
Yeah.
You had more characters. There's more drama. Transfer drama was also like, wasn't spoilt by like Fabrizio Romano or whatever. Like, you know, Carlos Tevez, when he moved across Manchester, it was a big thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that whole era. Yeah, also, I feel like the goals were better, but maybe I've completely confabulated that in my head. And you were having like one like Amir Zaki at Wigan, just like his bicycle kick against Liverpool.
Yeah, he scored at Anfield against us. I remember.
Just like that is peak football, not just peak Barclays or whatever. Like that is the pinnacle of what football is. But also with like early 2000s, it's before my time, but like Ronaldinho was one of the first players that really stuck with me as a footballer, I guess. I remember like playing one of the early FIFAs and it would open up with him, like a video of him skilling past everyone. And I was like 6 and I was like, that man is the coolest. Like he's such a fundamental part of football at that time. Even though by the time, like, as you get into the latter part of the era that I'm talking about, he was in like Mexico with a load of strippers. So
that's good though, still, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a good way to see it out. Next one then, the first person to answer this question, the top 5 Wigan players of all time.
Do you mind get my phone out?
No.
So this was, you asked me this in terms of, you were like, as a little heads up.
Yeah. I've started giving people a heads up because I've done it a few times. People look very stumped. So yeah,
I think I'd be really, because the problem is with, if you ask a Liverpool fan who's the top 5 Liverpool players of all time, there is levels of, like, I mean, if you ask Finn, he has a completely different answer because he doesn't know what he's doing. But you can list off your kind of, there's a difference between kind of a Mount Rushmore of a team and like the best players. I've kind of done a bit of a halfy.
Okay.
Because because Wigan have gone through the divisions, I've based it almost of the time and of the division that they're in a little bit.
Okay.
And it's also in my era.
That's fine.
Emerson Boyce goes straight at the top. The others can float about in loads of orders, whatever. But Emerson Boyce is Mr. Wigan. Like, he FA Cup winning captain. The season after we won the FA Cup, we played Man City at the Etihad in the quarter-final and beat them. We're one of the best teams to defend the FA Cup of all time. No one ever talks about it. James Perch scored in that game. and Emerson Boyce, I think it was Dzeko, like the dying embers of the game. Dzeko or Jovetic, one of them, had basically an open goal. And Emerson Boyce makes a block that would make Franz Beckenbauer like piss his kecks. It's the best. Like, he knocks it over the bar from like a slide tackle. And again, no one talks about this because he's not wearing a Man United top. Emerson Boyce didn't get his flowers. He scored a scorpion kick against Swansea once, I think. It was like some weird played for Barbados. That's like prime Barclays. Emerson Boyce deserves his flowers so much, and he is Mr. Wigan. I mean, again, like, I'm probably I mentioned Graham Jones earlier on. Like, if you're an older Wigan fan, that's kind of your vibe. Yeah. Roberto Martinez is up there. I've not included Roberto Martinez in this because I've done kind of players, not managers. And in my head, he's a manager rather than the fellow who's wearing a sombrero playing against like Crew. Next, I've got.
So there's number 2.
Number 2.
Yep.
Oh, this is so different. Right, number Number 2, if I order it,
Yeah.
again, these could kind of go in any order. Callum McManaman. He's now in his 3rd spell at Wigan. He's still there. And he comes on as a sub, and he either scores a screamer or he elbows someone in the temple. And that is what I live for. Him in the FA Cup final, being able to cut in, like, he was nasty. Like, and defenders could not keep up with him. And this was Man City, it was Mancini era Man City. And this young Scouse lad had them on strings. So Callum McManaman goes up there. Then I've got Will Grigg. Yeah. Again, it's of the time. Does Will Grigg get into any of the Premier League, Wigan sides? No. Hugo Rodallega probably should be in this list, and he's not, because this was the hardest question I could. But should he? Would he get into the Premier League sides? Probably not. But the amount of he was League One Aguero. He was the best finisher of the ball I've ever seen, and it's again, you could probably say if you put, if you'd put Aguero in League One in a League One team, does he score as many as Wigan era Will Grigg? He probably does, but that doesn't matter because it goes against my agenda. He's just the best kind of proper finisher, fox in the box kind of finisher I've ever seen at Wigan. And that's why he's on my list. And I guess my list.
No, that's a good one. As you say, you can not culty because that sounds like he's not good, but if you're really good at that level, the fans are going to still love you as much as you're really good 2 levels up because you're still smashing it.
And he didn't play for Wigan in the Prem, so we can't kind of judge him on. Do you know what I mean?
That's not his fault, is it?
Yeah, exactly. But he was just so good, and also just loved the club. And the way we lost him to Sunderland because Sunderland were daft, and we just pulled their kecks down. They threw millions, and then the story is that Will Grigg was in his pajamas at home, and he was like, "You got to drive to Sunderland. They've given us $5 million for you." So but I remember it happening, and he left at 1 a.m. on deadline day, and I'd stayed up to basically just cry. It was awful. Yeah. So Will Grigg's up there. The beauty of this is that Finn came into the studio and was like, "I'm getting dogs abuse because I didn't pick a good 5-side team on the Football Historian podcast." If any Wigan fans give me dogs abuse, I probably know them. So Ali Al Abzi I've got next, and it's weird as well because the goalkeeper so I wanted to be a goalkeeper when I was growing up. I always played in goal at in Sunday League, and my idol was always Chris Kirkland. I've got a signed Chris Kirkland top up in my room. But Ali Al Habsi is a goalkeeper that people remember for as good, even if you're not a Wigan fan, and because he was that good. And if a bigger team had taken a chance on Ali Al Habsi, he could have been a mainstay in a much bigger team than Wigan. But he loved Wigan and he hates Bolton, which is even better. There's also when he moved back to Saudi Arabia. He's from Oman, but when he moved to the Saudi League, I think the entirety of the Middle East came out to welcome him. He was like a deity coming out, and everyone was like, because he's a god. He's like the only Omani footballer. It's him and just 10 other people who are just plumbers and bin men and stuff like that. So so I've got Ali Al Habsi up there. He's probably the best goalkeeper we've ever had at Wigan, certainly by talent. So yeah. And then I've got a really, really rogue one. And this is, if I'm going to get any dogs abuse, it'd be this. Right. I've got Reece James. Oof. So we had Reece James on loan. It must have been the 18-19 season. It was his first ever season in professional football. The season before he'd won the FA Youth Cup with Chelsea. Had never played it. He made his professional debut for Wigan, playing right back, and single-handedly kept us up. He is the most, if you're going off the level of talent, he's probably the most talented player I've ever seen don a Wigan shirt. And it's so sad how the narrative around Reece James has become, he's injured all the time. Because there were times back when he took Chelsea to a Champions League that was like, this is England's number 1 right back. But when he was so influential as a fullback at the age of 18, having never played professional football before, that we played him in midfield for the latter half of the season because around him it just wasn't working. And this was like Will Grigg when he couldn't bang in goals in the Championship. He was allergic to the Championship a little bit. But Reece James, as an 8, he was so good in that loan spell. We gave him the captain's armband for his last game. The lad was 18 years old and a fullback.
Yeah.
You know, no one grows up wants to be a Gary Neville. That's the famous quote. And he was electrifying. He scored a goal. He scored a free kick against Leeds. Like, he could do everything. And like, maybe it's rich me putting him on this list. He's just certainly, if you give a Mount Rushmore of a Wigan players, he's not on there. But he's probably the most talented player I've seen. And any Wiganer who saw that season, like, it was he just won all of the Player of the Season awards. And we were in a relegation battle. Like, we if he wasn't there, we get relegated 100% of the time.
Yeah.
And then if we go into administration and we're in League One, do we get saved then? Like, you know, you can start going down that route. But yeah, it's a proper rogue one.
No, but yeah. It's slightly similar, which now someone like to reach the Suarez thing for Liverpool fans. I think it's that he wasn't there long enough, but comfortably possibly the best player that's ever played, because you didn't have enough of an impact. You don't make those big
Absolutely.
lists.
The weird thing with Reece James, though, is that he was never contracted to the club.
Yeah.
He was on loan from Chelsea, which is why it's a road. Because also, if we're going like loanies at Wigan, like Amir Zaki always should get the mention, because like he was
like the original Michu.
Yeah, he's miles better than Michu. Michu can
offended
get in the bin. Amir Zaki, and the only reason he didn't stay is because we lost him. We went back to Egypt and the international break and then come back. And Steve Bruce was like, "Well, I'm not having that." It's like, you should have, Steve, because he was the best. If Amir Zaki stays in the Premier League, he wins Ballon d'Ors. That man was insane, and he had the jawline. He had he was like marketable. He didn't, you know, his first name was 3 letters long. Yeah. How do you spell Amir like that? Yeah. Crazy. Like, he kept people guessing.
Great. I think I read on Reece James, I think 30% of his career start have been for Wigan, which is testament to the injuries.
Yeah, I mean,
that's pretty mad, isn't it?
But we'll take him back.
We go on the Reece James podcast next time. But the top 5 non-Liverpool players of all time.
Non-Liverpool, non-Wigan.
Non-Wigan players of all time. Sorry, that is the good says here. Yeah, because I'm not used to. Sorry, you can put Liverpool players in. That's why.
I don't know any. I've got no Liverpool players in.
Non-Wigan or Liverpool.
No, do you know what? Yeah, the non-Wigan part really didn't need to be. Like, I'm not that delusional. Maybe Jordi Gomez gets 6th, but Messi and Ronaldo. I mean, it's Messi, a million steps, and then it's Ronaldo. Like. It's just inarguable. Although, like, the Ballon d'Or argument, I don't really like, because there are so many like Ballon d'Ors given out that were given out at time. I mean, both of them deserve to win, the majority of them.
Yeah.
But like the one that Messi's just won, you know, and like if you go back to the Ballon, like, you know, Thierry Henry should have won a Ballon d'Or ahead of Pavel Nedved, and he didn't. Not that I'm going to lose any sleep over that. But yeah, and then Ronaldo has to be that. I mean, I dislike the fella, but also, like, I listened to Finn's episode and he didn't have him in, and I think that's just because he's a Liverpool fan. The fella played for United, but the best thing that Cristiano Ronaldo ever did was get 2-footed by Arjen Dazou, and I'll stand by that. I've got Maradona.
Nice.
Again, like, it's almost a bit rich because obviously I never saw any of Maradona play, but I've seen videos of Maradona play, and I've seen testimonies of the players that played around him. And he also, like, hit the World Cup that he won for Argentina when they, you know, when he scored the goal against England. One, it's possibly one of the best goals, if not the best goal scored of all time. But also, like, the man then transcends football. Like, at a time post kind of Falklands Wars or during the Falkland Island kind of issue, he transcends football and becomes an Argentine god. You know, maybe that's not to do with his football ability, but like, it's like there's a reason why, like, he was so good. And there's always, the amount of videos I've seen. I always get on my TikTok. It's like big fat Maradona turning up at testimonials and doing like mad.
Yeah.
Like, he blatantly had the talent born into him because he just has a knack in the same way that Messi kind of did. Maybe that's unfair on the amount of graft that Messi put into it, but something in the water in Argentina. Then I've got R9, like just one of the most clinical. Like when you see the goals that like Ronaldo Nazario scored, it's like some of them are mad. Some of them make no sense. Like his dribbling for kind of an out and out striker was unbelievable. So I've got R9 there, and then I've got Ronaldinho, which is again I touched on it. It's very much one that I'll get dogs abuse for, maybe because like there's a weird. I don't think so. No. I think there's a weird thing now. There's a glaring omission of Pele in that list, because there's a weird thing now where as soon as you get further onto the generation, the current generation or whatever, the new generation, then slag off the image of the older players gets diminished, because Drogba's the prime example of that one. Drogba as a player was fantastic, but he doesn't have the goal scoring stats to show that he's insane. And everyone's bothered about XG now, which again, I'm big into stats or whatever, it's very useful, but to base your opinion of players on, it's like,
Yeah.
And I think, like, I remember seeing clips of Ronaldo and catching of Ronaldinho and catching little bits of Ronaldinho growing up that made me excited.
Yeah.
Because he is like football personified. What he could do with the football was so cool. He carried football culture for a big period.
Yeah.
Front of FIFA, and he was like, selling Pepsi or whatever he was doing. So I've got Ronaldinho there. There is so much, Zidane probably should be in that list, and
you can't be upset with Ronaldinho. I think they did a thing in the Premier League where they asked all the players their favourite player, and Ronaldinho won out of all the players they asked. So,
and then it was Moussa Dembele, because he gets into all the lists.
Yeah. All right, that's great. Well, then the last one on this section is your all-time five-a-side team.
Okay.
Have that.
So
please.
when I obviously I'm taking this as if I'm going to five-a-side, these are the five-a-side, or if I'm if I'm building a five-a-side team rather than a team of football players, they've got to come with the ability to play five-a-side, but also five-a-side's a culture. You go to the pub afterwards with five-a-side. So in goal, I've got René Higuita.
Nice.
He's good with his feet. He's a bit of a wild card. He'll probably dribble out and score, which is good for five-a-side. And also, he has some connections with Pablo Escobar, so the after party's getting me mad. Like down at the Fox and Duck, like René Higuita is getting us hooked up. But then, like, you need a sensible man at the back, but you need a man as well who's also comfortable in midfield. So I've got Philipp Lahm.
Nice.
I think also, like, obviously he's a great player, like great defensively, but also can bring it forward. And then also at the pub later, he's stopping people from getting off the rails. Like, we've got a big match next week, like against third in the table. Like, come on, let's not overdose on cocaine, René. That kind of stuff. Then I've got Nick Powell. Nick Powell is my favourite Wigan player of all time. Nick Powell could have been a Premier League starter comfortably if he wanted to, but he didn't want to. Like, I think he's still playing for Stockport at the moment. He went from Stoke, and he was one of Stoke's best players at the time, and Stoke were in the Championship. When he was at Wigan, there was a game he played against Rotherham, and I'm pretty sure he scored a hat-trick in that game, but certainly, so we were 2-0 down, came on as a sub, and it then turned it into 2-2. And then the end of the game, they had a goalkeeper called Lewis Price, Rotherham. He used to play for Palace. And Rotherham were on the attack, and Nick Powell just decides to stay in Lewis Price's box and got Lewis Price to jump on his back like a piggyback. There's only one photo of it to prove that it happened, because no camera picked it up. But I remember I was in the stand and watched it, and they were like having a bit of a joke or whatever, and he carried this is 96th minute, carried him out of the box, like whilst he's on the back of Nick Powell, and then dives on the floor outside the box. So it's not in the box. So it's not as like a big of a decision to make. It's not a penalty or whatever. But he's jumped out the box. Rotherham are on the attack. Stop the game. And because Nick Powell's on the floor rolling around. And the referee goes to the linesman and goes, what happened? And he goes, well, the goalkeeper jumped on Nick Powell's back. And it looked like they were having fun. And then now he's on the floor. So it is a foul. And they pulled back the attack. Gave us the free kick, 90-something minute, and Nick Powell whipped it in top corner and scored. And it, again, scrap the FA Cup final. That's my favourite ever game. Nick Powell, it just, like he'll elbow people. He'll be like an absolute menace playing five-a-side, and he'll also be great afterwards. The perfect kind of five-a-side player. Next one is Robin Friday.
Okay.
Do you know Robin Friday? Robin Friday, I think back in the 70s, used to play for Reading. And he is, not that I watched Robin Friday growing up, I'm only 24, you know what I mean? But Robin Friday is known as like the best player ever to have never, like if he wanted to, he'd have played Premier League, but he loved women and drink and drugs too much. I think mainly women and drink. I think he just like George Best. He looked like George Best as well. There's an album by the Super Furry Animals or something. Where he's the front cover. He's like a bit of a cult icon. And I watched a documentary about him once, and I just saw that he just loved women, loved ale. So again, he's perfect. And great also, actor. If he's meant to be the second coming of Pele, but playing for Reading, he's in the five-a-side. He's made it. And then up top, Emil Heskey.
Yes.
Maybe the most underrated player of all time, Emil Heskey, because KSI made a song about him, and it tarnished his reputation as an unbelievable strike partnership. Like if you were in a strike partnership with Heskey, the amount of work he would do. He was also a great finisher.
Yep.
I remember him at Wigan, like he was at Wigan alongside Amir Zaki, and he was great. Like he could hold up the ball. He was one of those players, a bit like Drogba, although Drogba obviously did it at a high level and won more accolades and was better. That for when kind of scoring goals in his goal statistics for the betterment of the team, I guess. He was this great partnership striker, which is what I want in my five-a-side team if I'm on the touchline with a couple of cans and a suit on. And also, he's a DJ. So the after party is great. You've got Rennie Higuita, Philip Lahm's keeping it cool, but Heskey's on the decks, Robin Friday's on the ale. He's brought all the supermodels because, like, apparently that's who he kind of was. And Nick Powell is he's a wild card. He's probably like hit someone with a chair. I think that five-a-side team also wins the league in its first season and then gets banned and can never come back. And that's fine. I'm fine with that.
Well, you get the special award if you mention Heskey. You get to hold the Heskey. You can have him next
No way.
So you can sit at the table with you. You can't take him home. But then the last question is super sub.
Super sub. Do you know what? Again, for the same kind of thing as Nick Powell a little bit, but a bit more lively, it's probably Callum McManaman again.
Nice.
If I want the kind of Wigan, I think it's only right as well that I've got like 3 former Wigan players, especially to make up with the fact that I've never seen Robin Friday play. And I've just saw one Tifo football video about it, and I'm like, wow, he's going straight in my five-side team. Yeah, Callum McManaman, because he was just so, when he's nifty, he's so nifty with his feet.
To get the ball off. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that level of detail for those 5 players, but that is
that's the most exciting to be about.
Yeah, that's good. Right, we'll have a final break, and I want to settle some of the biggest debates in football history. So we'll see you in a sec. Are you looking for a Kazakhstani football team to support? Then I think FC Kemay is the team you should support. Do you agree?
Growing up as a child, I always had FC Kemay posters on my bedroom wall.
Well, and all the children of the Kazakhstani future will have FC Kemay posters on their wall because FC Kemay is the team to support, and because of that, Tom has made us a chant that we're all going to follow. So,
up the Kemay, up the Kemay,
up the Kemay. Make sure you follow them on all the social medias. All the posts and all the things you should follow will appear below us right here. And you should be a supporter of FC Kemay.
Live, laugh, Kemay.
The debate.
Welcome to the final section. the debate. Let's settle some of the biggest debates. First one. Quite interested as you're the first person who doesn't have a foot in any camp.
Yeah.
Gerrard, Lampard, Scholes, and in which order?
Scholes at the bottom. Scholes at the bottom. I'm not saying he wasn't a great player, but like, he's only there because of what he won, and he won that because of how great the Man United team is, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's so difficult in it because again, Lampard won way more than Gerrard, but I don't think accolades should come into it. Why I don't like the Ballon d'Or really, because it's like whoever wins that trophy wins the. Do you know what I mean? Wins their domestic trophies or whatever. I'd probably go Lampard, Gerrard, but I think that's tight in terms of Gerrard at the top. Because there was that time when Gerrard almost moved to Chelsea, or like there was rumours, wasn't there? I think if Gerrard goes to Chelsea, he becomes maybe bigger than what, or I don't know. It's really difficult. The both of them are, the amount of goals that Frank Lampard scored as a midfielder is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I think for technical ability and also his ability just to put his foot through it from like 50 yards and it goes in.
Yeah.
I'd go Gerrard.
But I'm not going to disagree. Next one, Pele or Maradona?
Maradona. I think Pele is probably the most overrated footballer of all time. Again, do you know what? This caused a debate because I asked my dad's opinion when I left the house. I said that I'm going to do a podcast with Peter Jones, and he said, "Oh, the Dragon," and I went, "No, the football historian." And I was like, "Who's your most overrated footballer?" He was like, "I don't know." And I was like, "Well, because I think my answer is going to be Pele, because you gave me a heads up on the question." I was like, "My answer is going to be Pele," and he was like, "No," because he's from the era, because he's ancient. He saw Pele play, and I was like, "Yeah, but he played against bricklayers from like." Not Rosario, that's not it, from Santos or whatever. Do you know what I mean? And he only did it in Brazil when football was so is he a great footballer? Absolutely. Just nowhere near, I don't think, the level of Maradona. I also think he lied when after his death, his goal tally went up because he'd scored some goals in the garden that they'd forgot about, whatever. We found some Pele goals. There's that one that he made up that he like bounced off two fellas' heads against Juventus and then did a bicycle kick and it went in, and like they reenacted it. It was like, this is what Pele said happened. It's like, I don't think you can judge him as much as you can judge how great Maradona was, because all of the footage of Pele is like blurry and the defense is nowhere to be seen, and like, I don't know. Maybe that's harsh on Pele, but what's he gonna do? Maradona is my pick for that one.
Just in his defence, I scored an overhead kick from the halfway line in a game once, and no one who wasn't there believes it ever happened. And people still don't believe it happened.
I believe it.
And
happened.
It happened. I can assure you it happened. Yeah. That's all I need. So in Pele's defence, sometimes the unbelievable does happen.
To be fair, I've not met anyone who believed that happened for Pele. So
I've not met anyone who believes I did that either. That's right. Next one is Messi or Ronaldo.
Messi. It's just such a non-debate now. It was maybe a debate before he won the World Cup, but it was still Messi. And like what Messi can do with the football, Ronaldo dreams of a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Like, but again, maybe it's because like Ronaldo's very easy to dislike as well. Like the way he handles himself. I think it's a big thing as well that the Ronaldo goes to back to United. Obviously, United was a mess anyway, but made them worse when he played. He makes Portugal worse when he plays now because he's past it, I guess. But he demands that he should play, whereas Messi made Argentina better, and he's waning as a player, and they carried them to a World Cup. He's winning everything with Inter Miami, and he's on his holidays, and he's just on his holidays with mates or whatever. Yeah, so it's 100% Messi.
Yeah, great, that's a good one. And if Messi and Ronaldo are the best players of the last 10-15 years, who's third best behind them?
I think Iniesta. I mean, when you say the last 15 years as well, because that nullifies, obviously, like R9 is before that, and there's loads of players that kind of nip into that slightly. But
yeah,
I think if you're talking about the best at their peak in this era, I think it's Iniesta, because I think Iniesta one made the really difficult seem really simple. It's why like people don't talk about Iniesta as much. He only retired recently, like, do you know what I mean?
Week, yeah.
And he's his dribbling was just unreal. His passing was unreal. He could score screamers. He scored important goals. He scored the winner for Spain.
Yeah.
In the World Cup. Like I think he has something like 130, 140 caps for Spain. At the, a Spain team that had consistent players rolling off and on, who were brilliant. And Iniesta was always the mainstay. I think if you stretch that period back a little bit, then it's maybe a toss-up between Xavi and Iniesta. But I picked Iniesta over Xavi because I think Iniesta's best football came after. It came in that period where Xavi's maybe crossed over, but was just a bit before as well.
Yeah. It's a good. I think it's the first time we've had them, but also nowhere near incorrect. So it's a good
nice
one. Next one would be club or country. So I normally say, would you rather be captain of Wigan to win the Premier League or captain of England to win the World Cup? But maybe they're two different questions. But what would you prefer?
Wigan. I'd rather Wigan win a corner than England win. I mean, it's weird, right? Because and again, like I'd never call myself a Scouse or anything. I have, Scouse roots, but I'm around. I have such maybe kind of Republican kind of beliefs, I guess. I don't know. It's a debate for another day, that kind of thing. But like, I'm not as enamored by when England lost the Euros final. I didn't really. I was in Amsterdam watching it when we were out filming, and I didn't really care. If they'd won it, I would have been like, great. But like Wigan have lost. I watched Wigan lose to Gillingham, and it's ruined my weekend. Like England have never ever lost, and my weekend's been ruined.
Yeah.
And also, Wigan don't win Premier Leagues. I'd rather win the it's the Bristol Street Motors Trophy. I'd rather win that than win the World Cup with England, because you go into Wigan folklore. It's like when I did loads of investigating stuff, when that finished, and we got bought and stuff like that, they put photos up of Wigan legends around the stadium and some fans, and my photo was outside the ground and in the West Stand and in one of the lounges. So how mental that is, that the club that I love and I grew up, there's a photo of me in like some Wigan coat that they gave me, and with a quote that was like, "We'll do anything to keep our club alive," or whatever. Like it's the biggest honour. I've got that same photo because they gave it to me in my room, like framed. I'd rather that over winning England. Although if you win England the World Cup, you never have to pay for a pint ever again.
Yeah.
Whereas if you win Wigan something, it's only like the Hawk, in Hawkley. So swings around the boats.
Well, was it Jeff Ayre still trying to get free Budweisers out?
Yeah, exactly.
You're fine. Next one then would be the goalkeepers: Buffon, Casillas, and Neuer. You put them in order for us.
Ooh, I think Neuer goes top. The order straight away is Neuer, Buffon, Casillas. I think Neuer changed goalkeeping a little bit, and his ability, like Neuer's been able to eclipse Oliver Kahn at Bayern, which is unbelievable a little bit. Whereas, I think Casillas was great. But yeah, like I think he maybe just falls short of that. And Buffon did it for so long and was so unbelievable, and is every goalkeeper's favourite goalkeeper is Gigi Buffon. So yeah, I'd probably put him second. But also I think a lot of he started playing high level like football and making his mark before I was really watching loads of football. So maybe I've not given him the credit that he deserves to go top. But I think Neuer is to still be doing it as well. Yeah, I put Neuer.
We had John Achterberg, who's the former Liverpool goalkeeper coach, and he picked Neuer. So anyone who says Neuer, you get correct, is what it is.
Yeah, nice.
All the others are debate, but
you're speaking to a former goalkeeper for Schem United. Under 8s or whatever. So I'm kind of I know what I'm talking about.
Right. Okay, great. 3 more. So under the most overrated player, you're going to stick with Pele?
I'll stick with Pele, yeah.
Okay, that's fine. And well, 2 more then will be the greatest manager of all time.
Ooh, I mean, so the answer that everyone gives is Pep, and that's probably because it's correct. But also, it does irk me giving that answer when he's only ever done it at the highest level. But he has changed football. But he's changed football, in my opinion, for the worse.
Yeah.
Or the best, some of the best teams of all time. Like Pep's Barcelona, and then the treble winning City side as well. Is like they're managed by Pep, so you can't really go against it. I think aside from that, Ancelotti should definitely get a mention. I just love his laissez-faire managerial style. I don't get how you can basically go to a group and to do it at every level. Like, he made Everton so much better.
Yeah.
And he rocked up and, tells Calvert-Lewin, do what you want. And he goes and bags loads of goals. Yeah. So, I think that he's got that magic about him more so than Pep. Pep also wears jumpers to FA Cup finals, and I don't like that. I don't care if you've been to Matalan. Go to a suit shop, put a suit on, show the cup a bit of respect, because Ben Watson didn't nod in that header for you to rock up with bloody trainer socks on. Give your head a wobble. Do you know what? That's annoying me. It's Carlo Ancelotti's my answer.
See Tony Pulis when he wore the suit and then ran down the tunnel, put his tracksuit on for the match. So at least he did show it the respect.
Do you know what? I can kind of get. It's like Neil Warnock used to wear the same clothes every time the team was doing well.
Yeah.
But sometimes in the lower leagues, he'd get on a winning streak and he'd still be in his shorts in December. I can get behind superstition, but he's wearing off-white.
Yeah.
You give your head a wobble.
Yeah.
You turn up in the FA Cup final in a Kenzo
just
top.
a horrible spit rolling thing. I never see anyone else do it. It's just that all the time.
Yeah.
A ball of spit. And I don't even know how he does it. I don't want to know, but it's the worst thing ever. But anyway, yeah. I won't put my opinion in. Last one is the greatest football team ever. So it can be for the game, for the season, for 5 games, 10 years, whatever you want to be. But who is the best?
For a period, I've touched on it really, and as much as I've just slagged him off, it's probably Pep Guardiola's Barcelona.
He wore suits then.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's what it is,
That's what he was. He wasn't as bald as well. Pep Guardiola's Barcelona, 2008 to 2011. Those couple of seasons when they won the sextuple, first team to ever win it. Again, that's Iniesta at its at his height. Iniesta was Xavi. I think Yaya Touré's in there. You've got Dani Alves, Puyol, Victor Valdez in goal, who was just happy to be there, I think. But then, at the start of that, you've got, is it Messi, Eto'o, and Henry?
Yeah.
That is, and Samuel Eto'o doesn't get his flowers, I don't think, enough, because he was electric. And he's holding his own in a team that has Messi and Henry in it. And then, as that moved, even that kind of Barcelona team, as it moved on, then you get kind of Ibrahimovic in there, and who I know I didn't do mad things at Barcelona really, but didn't rip up any ground or anything. But I think that period is such kind of pure football as well. It's the golden age, the pinnacle of tiki taka, which is exciting football more so than.
Well, I think I had before now where the other team are so defensive and stuff that people tried to beat them, which made it more exciting, I think, because they'd pass around and do the boss goals and all that, rather than now if you watch City, they're either win 5-0 or it's 1-0 and boring and not much happens.
I must be if I was a City fan, I'd be so bored, because my number one kind of footballing opinion is that the joy that I got from winning the FA Cup, from Wigan winning the FA Cup, Man City fans will never be able to replicate that with any Premier League win or anything, except for when they won the Aguero goal.
Yeah.
That when they won that Premier League, that matches up to the level of joy that I got.
Yeah.
Because it was so kind of one-off for Wigan, and it's probably never going to happen again. And like we got European football and all that kind of stuff. Whereas City win the Prem and no one even rocks up to
the parade.
Yeah, like so. It's a bit. I think that Pep Guardiola, before he started shopping at TK Maxx, and with that team, I think is probably the best team ever. Certainly, whilst I've been conscious for football, because like you could go back and talk about 1970s Brazil, which is like the go-to one, and it might be that one, but also I've slagged off Pele too much to sit here and go like, yeah, it was the 1970s Brazil, the one that I didn't see.
Yeah.
Not that I watched loads of Spanish football kind of growing up or anything, but I saw enough to know.
The special team.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely fair enough. Right, well, that concludes our chat. Definitely a debate. So thank you once again for coming in. Honestly, it's been a real pleasure, because I think maybe a lot of people who see you nowadays might think you're just the bloke who wrote loads of emails, but the more you look into your stuff, you wrote loads of emails for other stuff. But no, you've done a lot of interesting stuff, and you're still very young and smashing it, so I think people should be inspired by what you've done so far.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been the
just
best.
ticking all the have a word off.
Well, I'll put a word in for the other ones.
Yeah,
but if you want to watch the documentaries that were mentioned, Mother's Ruin, Unmasking the WMSCOG is one of them, is the most recent one, and then The Real Black Sabbath, which are both free to watch on YouTube.
Yep.
And they're both like 30 minutes each, so they're not too much of you.
Yeah, I watched one on the lunch break.
Oh,
perfect. So
they're lunch break documentaries.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, there's your new series. All right, well, boss, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it, and thank you for watching at home. We'll see you next time on the Football Historian Podcast.
Locking eyes from across the room, heart is pounding. What have I have to lose? This kind of feeling tends to blur your sight.